Hey, welcome, jerks. Showtime. We're running like a few seconds late. Just we're pretty much on time though. So a very rough day. I had a rough day. It was a brutal day. Back and forth. I saw someone get in a car accident, hit two buildings. Enough of that though. Like Mark Bederow just told me, attorney Mark Bederow in the green room said, your day couldn't have been as bad as Proctor's. So let's get the attorney Mark Bederow up. I'm still dealing with doggies. Got a lot of doggy stuff going on in the house. You might hear Charlie. I might even step away, but let's get the attorney up that people actually want to hear from. They don't need me on the screen. They need attorney Bederow right now. Today was crazy. We found out about Kevin Albert today and his drunk escapades with the badge or the gun. I want to hear what Bederow thinks. It's Bederow time. Attorney Bederow.
However bad your day could have been, it could not have been as bad as Michael Proctor's, and probably for the rest of your life. I mean, he is a mess. He was so bad, amongst the worst you'll ever see testifying as a police officer. And as I was watching him in the beginning, the first thought I had was, if you give this guy the benefit of the doubt, let's assume, even though this is a little silly, that he's telling the truth and that he's being earnest and sincere and trying to be as accurate, truthful, and credible as possible. That may be the one thing that's actually worse than him being a lying sack of shit. Because if you accept what he said as a credible, experienced homicide detective, he gave the worst example of police tunnel vision that you could ever experience, and is exactly what the defense said in their opening was one of the problems with this case. And if I understood this guy correctly over the last couple of days, again, giving him the benefit of the doubt, which I don't, by the way, but if you did, that because he had previously investigated 3 or 4 vehicular homicide or vehicular deaths anyway, in his career, and all he needed was to see John O'Keefe with one shoe on and talk to a couple McCabe's, and in the span of no time thereafter, he was ready to rock and roll. He, as he said, he had, that girl, I think was the terminology he used. And he defended that by basically saying, I didn't need to do anything else because I knew she did it. I didn't need to go in the Albert's house. I didn't need to look at their phones. I didn't even know what was on any of their phones. I had no interest. I had no curiosity. I didn't have to go to the crime scene. I didn't have to do anything. He was missing a shoe. The McCabe's told me that Karen Reed said something along the lines of, did I hit him? And then on the way to the hospital, Trooper Proctor turned into Dr. Proctor and made some medical evaluations, which, he determined fit what he needed, even though I think he acknowledged today, did he not, that John O'Keefe had no bruises, no fractures, no nothing, to the extent he is allowed to talk about any of that stuff. But if you accept all that, then he's the worst homicide detective you've ever seen in your life. And that's not good either. This is a guy, again, I'm still giving him the benefit of the doubt for this purposes of this part of the conversation, who was so sure that that girl was guilty here, that on his way driving down to her parents' house, he called for a tow truck already. That kind of slipped in the other day and wasn't really emphasized. That's kind of a big deal. Why would he do that unless he was ready to arrest her? I mean, they're taking the car. So then he goes down there, this experienced 11 years at the time detective, whatever he was, and he claims that he sees the vehicle of the person he knows who did it, and it's missing basically all of the right taillight, and it looks like the way they had it in the picture in the Sally Port. And this trained investigator does not take a single picture to document that, either at the house in Dighton when it was getting on the tow truck or before it went in the Sally Port. And he didn't need to do that because he's going to testify truthfully, incredible, and this investigation is full of integrity, and you can just take his word for it that that's what it looked like, notwithstanding the 830 reasons you probably shouldn't. So that's if you believe he's telling the truth, which then you get to kind of like what's really happening here. And to me, he's like another Jennifer McCabe, who I remember telling you I thought was one of the probably 3 worst witnesses, civilian witnesses I had ever seen. And it really is 25 years or more at this point. She was awful for so many reasons. Well, Proctor is the same thing as it goes with police witnesses. And when you do this for a living, you actually see more police witnesses than civilian witnesses. And police witnesses are actually working in the field. They tend to be experienced in testifying. They tend to, I mean, look at Brian Albert, right? Even though he probably lied about a lot of things, he came off in appearance anyway as credible in some ways. But Proctor was so bad for so many different reasons. And you heard a lot of it the other day. And the interesting thing to me was how much worse can it get today? And the only way I thought it could get worse is if they like pull out something of him doing something, either, throwing taillight pieces on the lawn, like he's shuffling cards at the house on Fairview Road, or if he's doing something in the Sally Port that he shouldn't be doing. I thought short of that, there's no way. It's just going to be more of the same, until today happened. And it was worse for a lot of reasons. And so the first thing was the way Jackson went through the text messages was a masterclass in cross-examination, because what he did was he didn't just beat him up on the messages. He beat him up on the messages, but he did it in the context of the larger theme of the defense. So he didn't do what Lally did when he tried to pop the balloon, which was just regurgitate the messages in a way that had a very flat affect. He had him talk about how, when this girl's going to get serious charges in this, how he relayed that to the tunnel vision and all of those things. So I thought it was really good. But the more it went on, you find out that even today, as he apparently did with the federal grand jury, he's basically trying to deny that he has any real relationship with anyone in the Albert family. And then it's kind of extracting a tooth from this guy. But eventually the babysitting, going to the houses, that sort of thing. And then you get to the Kevin Albert thing, which
God.
was, I mean, this is one of those, what are we doing here moments. He left him out when he first was fighting with Jackson about how many Alberts he knows. He just omitted him. And of course, he also happens to be a Canton detective. And so it turns out that this Canton detective, who's supposed to be recused from all of this investigation, is very interested in the investigation. He's such a good guy. He's offering interview rooms, and they're talking to each other. And one of the most interesting things that was said today was Proctor, who, of course, is, just whether he's doing this nefariously or just because he's a moron. Not that those are necessarily mutually independent things. You can be both. Tells Kevin Albert, I'm going to be talking to that firefighter, Katie. I thought that was very interesting, because you might have been wondering, like, how did they get to Katie from way back 6 weeks ago? And the answer probably is because dummy Proctor told the Alberts that, she's somebody I want to talk to. And then you find out that this Kevin Albert, who he's trying to say, I don't really know him that well, another acquaintance. He said he was an acquaintance, but he just happens to be an acquaintance who I socialize with many times and get drunk many times. So much so that I guess they go drinking and driving, and the police crews are having a good time, where Kevin Albert, wonderful cop that he is, I'm sure, gets so wasted that he can't even find his gun and badge, because he probably left it in Proctor's cruiser. So I thought that was just absolutely pathetic, but none of this was as pathetic as his attempts to connect the messages with what he was thinking. And when he said that I was very emotional about this, so that led me to basically call Karen Reed words, which I'm not going to say, some of them anyway, but you know what they are, and talk about her physical health and all those other comments. The one thing that I was surprised that Jackson didn't do, and it's very easy to sit in the audience and say, "Oh, I would have done this." I mean, when you're in real time, the one thing I was stunned that he didn't do was when Proctor said that I was so pissed off and emotional because she, ran over him. Now, remember, to set this up, what Proctor had said earlier was he basically admitted we're never going to be able to prove intent. Okay. So what that means is he's kind of acknowledging it could have been, in his mind, an accident. And the worst thing she did was just leave, which, by the way, that would be bad, obviously, if somebody did that on purpose and just left someone to die in the snow. But that there wasn't any intent that we could prove. So, in other words, for someone who's a seasoned homicide investigator, and I don't want to belittle what happened to John O'Keefe, because every dead person that could have resulted from a crime is a tragedy. But homicide detectives by nature are a grisly bunch. They're very detached. They have to be. And if you watch any of these police shows where they documentaries where they have like experienced homicide detectives, it's not that they don't have emotion as a human being, but they separate because they can't be making investigative decisions based on emotions like this idiot claims he did, but he didn't. See, the point is he's lying. But so he claims that he's so upset about this case that it led me to basically lose my mind, call her things that you would never say to anyone, tell his friends things that you would never say to anyone, all that stuff. And the one thing that I was surprised was that he wasn't asked, how many other times have you done that when you got pissed off on a case? And this is one of those things, there's no good answer because there's only two answers. The first answer is, well, all the time, which is like, oh my God, this guy should be fired like tomorrow. Or the second one is, well, never, which then becomes, well, why her? What is so emotionally terrible about this homicide, allegedly? There's no evidence that there was a crime right now, by the way. But what was so special about this particular case that sent you over the edge to the point where you just lost your shit over this? And I really wanted to see how he was going to answer that
I
because
wonder why, because I was thinking that too. I wonder why that didn't get asked.
Sometimes you lose it in the moment, or you're doing so many other things, or you've established so much, you just forget. I've done this. You just forget because
it's like a show. I do the same thing. I forget questions I want to ask, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and also, when you're a good cross-examiner, you're moving in real time, you're pivoting, you're not married to some script. And if you pounce at a certain moment and you get off your outline or bullet points, it can, sometimes you don't go back, but I don't know. I don't want to be too critical because he destroyed him every which way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was outstanding, but that would have been fascinating to see what that would have led to, because that answer makes absolutely no sense at all. And I thought he did a really good job too with the gift, explanation where he claimed, well, nobody got a gift, so it doesn't matter. But again, he tied it to the case, and it left me, at least, with the impression that this was the favor whitewashing Colin Albert from the report.
Yeah.
And he went back to that on another example and demonstrated with Proctor that this was a pattern. For example, so he whitewashed Colin Albert just like he whitewashed the famous Ring video that they've been trying to blame Karen Reed or somebody on her behalf of whitewashing, when the reality is there's only one logical suspect at that point, and it's Proctor. So, and then the last thing, I mean, there's a million things, obviously, but this testimony about the video that he saw doesn't mesh with the video that everyone else saw, which can only lead you to wonder, is there another version of this thing floating around? How did he get it? I mean, he said he watched it like recently. And he said, yeah, I see the backwards timer. I see Chief Wiggum apparating in and out. And by the way, he put him right by the Sally Port door in the back. Didn't do him any favors, I suppose. So he seems to know that the video was wrong. It had glitches, all of that. But yet he says there was nothing else wrong with it. It wasn't inverted. I don't think he used those words, but he gave a clear impression. Somebody's saying he said he watched it yesterday, which is another potential problem, which they left alone, how did he get the video yesterday? And did Lally show him the video? Because if Lally showed him the video yesterday while he was already on cross-examination, that's a major no-no. You don't get to talk to your own witness when he's under cross-examination. He's off limits. And Lally, he may not be skilled in a lot of things as a prosecutor.
Should know that, yeah.
He knows that. Now, if it was yesterday, I don't remember him specifically saying that. But so Proctor is, 100% damaged goods. And I really wonder if they have more that they're holding that they just don't want to use to cross him and give him a chance to explain, because they have a pattern of doing this really effectively, where a lot of lawyers might pounce with evidence and shove it in a witness's face. These guys are really disciplined and play the long game. And you saw them do it with the text messages that they held and did not use with Brian Albert, because he might have had more of a response, if you will. And they did it with Matthew McCabe, who is higher up on or I should say lower on the food chain, on the dope scale, that they kind of bullied him a little more to do that. And I wonder if there's other evidence involving Proctor that they're just not going to give him a chance to explain, and they're just going to unload at some future point. But the bottom line is he's as bad as you'll ever see. His demeanor today was 1,000 times worse than his semi-cocky direct examination. And his lack of self-awareness is when he left the stand today and said, "Thank you, jurors." It doesn't offend me that, I know in the beginning of the trial, somebody did that and everybody got all in an uproar, but they think you are a piece of human filth who never should have been a police officer and is the worst of the worst. And, you didn't even do an honest investigation. They probably believe that he's capable of framing her based upon this, you can only describe as this illogical and unnatural hatred for her, which he called a figure of speech, which of course opened the door to him just getting pummeled with all of the other figures of speech that he had to eat. And of course, as I'm sure everybody else did, even though it was totally improper, I would have done the same thing. I loved the editorial comment on the end of, shame on you. And the difference between these guys and Lally in terms of believing in their case and demonstrating that, there is true just despising this man as a police officer, as a person. And it couldn't have resonated more from Jackson in asking
Yannetti too. Yannetti, the look he was giving him. Yeah.
I was going to say that. It couldn't have resonated any more from Yannetti sitting at the table, looking at him. And by the way, the redirect on the Yannetti stuff, Lally, that's like leading with two chins. Just get him off the stand. Yeah. I don't. And then also the look on Karen Reed looking at him, which was at sometimes humorous because, I know you're lying, presumably, and other times just sheer disgust. But just what a horrible, horrible day. And if the case was over yesterday, 99.4%, I think at this point you can go to 99.8. Actually, go ahead and take it to 99.9 because I forgot something else. This thing with the medical examiner. His attempted explanation to say, I don't care, we're going to do what we want anyway. Number one, it's not consistent with the messages that they talked about trying to bully the medical
Yeah.
examiner. But number two, to say that in essence, I don't care what the medical examiner was going to do and leave it unclassified only proves the tunnel vision and only proves Jackson's point, which was you had that girl, and no matter what, you were going to get that girl because even if the medical examiner left it unclassified, you wouldn't care, which is bonkers. Of course, you should care. If you can't determine a cause or a manner of death, then how are you going to prove a homicide, which is a manner of death? I mean, murder is just a form of homicide, but if you can't even declare it's a homicide, by definition, that's powerful evidence that favors the defense. So what a disaster.
What a
Again,
disaster. Yeah. We got Media. I'm going to bring him up in a second here. He's in the green room. Kevin Albert. It was so funny because we have a comment here that says, why didn't AJ not mention Colin Albert being in the wedding as a kid? I think he actually did. And the person said, if he did, my apologies, I missed it. There was a point where he was, like you said, he was asking about which Alberts and McCabe's he knew. He said he knew Chris Albert and Julie Albert. And then AJ reminded him, oh, you also know Colin.
Yep.
And so he did remind him he knew Colin. He had to admit Colin, but he didn't admit Kevin, which then came up. And it just occurs to me too, like, is there an Albert that doesn't have a drinking issue? Like you got Kevin, Chris, like all of these guys, like what is up with the alcohol?
I
You
don't
lose
know.
your badge and a gun. It's like unbelievable.
Well, it's interesting is, who am I to, say that there might be some problems in the Canton Police Department or in the way that town is governed. But what do you think would happen to a police officer who, first of all, getting wasted with your gun on you is in New York, they would say, that's not fit for duty. And I assume that's everywhere else. Like the NYPD has standards of you have to be fit for duty, and there are various ways to be unfit for duty if your uniform isn't on right. And, there's minor things like that. Getting absolutely wasted, drunk driving, not just drunk driving, in the police
cruiser,
vehicle,
yeah.
okay, with your gun, that's bad enough. Losing your gun, real bad. Losing your badge, real bad. And then making a joke that you're so wasted, and the next day you call your buddy who you don't really know and who Proctor has testified, I don't really know any of these people, and joke that the only way to get rid of this hangover is to start pounding more beers now. What happened to him in terms of discipline in the Canton Police Department? This town and this area it really is copland. It's unbelievable. It just feels like a tiny, tiny town in suburban Boston, and it makes no sense.
It is totally copland. We have Media here. Before I get him up here, I'm going to take a step out for a second myself. So I'm going to leave it to you guys to kind of take over the show for a few minutes. I got to deal with some family stuff. So Media, it's your time. Introduce
Thank
yourself.
you so
What do you
much.
want to talk?
I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go here. So thank you for having me, Mark. Hope you're doing well tonight. Big day in court. I got the most notes I've ever taken, I think, on any day of court so far. This is crazy. But seriously though, if I was Michael Proctor, I would contact Michael Morrissey right now and have him take me out to dinner at the Clam Box, just across the street from the Quincy Shores Reservation, and have a nice fried clam dinner with onion rings and fries tonight, because it might be one of the last great times he gets to have a summer meal, because if the feds come down on him soon, it ain't looking good for him. So that's all I got to say first and foremost. Let's get to the real stuff here. In terms of what happened today, my first big red flag of the day, after all the text messages were out of the way, was knowing the McAlberts, the McCabes, and the Albert family. Basically, when you look at what went down there, he kind of said, well, I know of them vaguely. I know of them. I know them occasionally or casually. That's all he was saying. It was like he was totally underselling the fact that 13 years ago, whatever it was, there was a wedding. He was in the wedding. They're calling Albert. was the ring bearer in that particular wedding. And it's just, you're not going to deny that. I'm sorry. Julie Albert was your babysitter. You trusted, her to babysit your kids. And again, he tries to downplay, well, we have many babysitters. Well, it doesn't matter if you have many babysitters. When some people have, let's put it this way. Most babysitters over a certain age are usually family friends or relatives or something like that, unless I'm totally wrong here. But they would have to know Julie pretty well, in my particular opinion. And just the way he tried to just downplay it. And then you have, and some of the text message exchanges between Courtney and Mike. Courtney said that Julie Albert offered gifts when this was all over, and Mike said to get Liz a gift, his wife. And basically, he said he speaks with his sister every day. There's proof of a text exchange, and he was, when he was on that stand today, he was sitting there like, oh, yeah, this is so damn embarrassing. You could see the dread in him. Like, I wish I never sent these text messages. And he tried to like justify it. And even Tully later in the day they tried to kind of be a little slick in the way they went around their answers, and kind of trying to, like a serpent, try to maneuver around the truth, and try to really, make it seem like the lies were the truth. But I just wasn't buying. And you could just see it in his candor today. And once again, it's another case of individuals on the stand that are extremely comfortable when Lally's asking the questions. But when the defense gets up there, they're extremely nervous and they're extremely riled up. And Alan Jackson, of course, was at his, Alan Jackson's always awesome. But this was about, when you look at this whole trial so far, and I think you just said it moments ago, Mark, this was peak level Alan Jackson. And I love, and you said this earlier, just moments ago, the way he ended it with Michael Proctor today. Shame on you, sir. And you could tell he meant it. You could tell that Alan was not being theatrical, because if you still watch Alan when he was sitting down afterwards, when Lally got back up there, Alan Jackson was fired up. He was totally in the zone. He was in 12th round mode, like he was a superstar world class boxer fighting for the championship. He was fired up, and it was absolutely beautiful.
It was. And one of the things too that to me now becomes an interesting issue if they try is this whole idea of, we know Proctor denied to some extent knowing the Alberts in his federal testimony, whether he corrected it or not. That really didn't come out today, but we've heard that before. And then it turns out that he's got real relationships with at least 4 of them. Obviously working with Kevin, getting drunk together and losing weapons with Kevin, Julie, the babysitter, Julie offering gifts, Chris, it seems clear they whitewashed Colin, their son, out of any of this trouble and went out of their way to do that. So much so that, Proctor even gave this just ridiculous statement. I don't know if anybody picked this up today, but he tried to justify the interview of Colin months later by basically saying, well, we were hearing things about him and we knew that he was not involved in the least bit. So the safest thing to do was go interview him and document that. That is ridiculous. Okay. If you don't, that's not why they did that. And where I'm going here is, for the first time, it's at least plausible to me that if the defense wants to really shake this up, I don't know if they will because they're so far ahead, but I think they have a pretty good faith argument if they want to try to say, bring in Morrissey. And the only hurdle they'd have to get over is to convince the judge that it's extremely relevant to Proctor's credibility, about lying about his relationship with the Alberts. And even though he ultimately gave up a little bit of it, the jury, the argument would be, has a right to know that in the early stages of this case, he denied that. And now you go back to that ridiculous press conference that Morrissey gave last summer that we've talked about before, where he said, and I'm summarizing in substance, that Michael Proctor does not know anyone in the Albert family. And we're now in a situation where the district attorney has either been misled by Proctor or somebody close to him who deliberately lied to him, which would impeach Proctor's credibility. You don't care about Morrissey in that situation. That goes to Proctor's credibility. Or alternatively, Morrissey is just a liar. But nevertheless, the defense can make an argument. We want to know why the district attorney would make that statement. And the argument is he's supposed to be a careful lawyer. You don't just throw out those kinds of things without being damn sure that it's true. And that it's 1,000% not true. And it'll be curious to see if they try to do that.
Oh, it's just unbelievable. And Morrissey was so out of line when he made those comments. And again, those are the things that just make people in their personal opinions. Like a lot of us last year were sitting there hearing this, and it's like, you don't ever see a district attorney like this just come out and make this kind of announcement. It's simply no evidence at all. It's like, sir, that is not up for you to decide right now. If this is being tended to in a court of law, you don't sit there and make a public address like this. It was outrageous.
It was ridiculous. I mean, the whole day was, you want to believe at some point that Lally, gets home after another crappy day at work, and just looks in the mirror and at some point says, what am I doing? I'm a lawyer. Am I going to be a hack, or am I going to be a real lawyer? Am I going to be just a patty maker in the DA's office who does what I'm told and just checks in and checks out? Or am I going to decide that I need to be ethical and moral in what I'm doing and that this is wrong? And every time I want to believe that they're going to do it, he's not going to do it. And
Right.
it becomes clear at some point, you have to start wondering, he would know more than anyone else what all these witnesses have said in any of their prior statements to the cops, what the evidence is, all of this. And you start to wonder if at some point, when do you really give credence to the argument? Is he just suborning perjury and doesn't care? Because how can he possibly believe that Michael Proctor made those statements that he made over the course of 8 months to 10 different groups of people or whatever it is? And if you believe that he said all of those things in August of 2022, because I'm so upset about this case, that is complete bullshit. That's ridiculous. Everything he said is not true. Everything he tries to justify is not true. And as much as you want to blame Proctor, the people you really have to blame are Morrissey and Lally, because they are the only two. Well, Morrissey really is the only real person who has the power right now to say, we're tapping out, we're done. The charade has gone on far enough. And they're not going to. It seems clear. They're making a bigger mess for themselves. There's never going to be everybody knows this at this point. There can't be anyone who seriously thinks at this point that she's getting convicted. And by the way, how many witnesses do they have left? I mean, in the form of real witnesses, a medical examiner who Proctor has already kneecapped her credibility because she did capitulate to the bullying, not to the level that they wanted, but she threw in that gratuitous language that is what they wanted. So she's discredited. It doesn't make, I in some ways, she's not the bad guy in that scenario, but she's discredited. They have to establish conclusively and win the battle of the experts with the cause of death and manner of death, that the injuries are consistent with this scene. It can't be close. And the defense is going to challenge that very effectively. And then they have a Celebrite expert who they have to, again, win the battle of the experts conclusively by attacking the defense expert who simply says, I see deleted calls on Celebrite, which is, what we all use. So other than those two, are there any other real DA witnesses? I mean, like they're calling Tully right now, who's just a repeat of O'Hara, both in terms of substance. And I actually thought they were the same guy with the shiny bald head and the same look. I didn't know that they were different people. This whole case is just so weird on so many levels.
It is the same.
So,
I was going to ask about just pipe in in terms of the medical examiner. He threw shade at her too. And I think that AJ made a point to subtly, you know, make people aware she's a female. And it's just like the misogyny of this guy, where he
Totally.
seems to like bully women. He hates women. It's like, do you think
Well,
that came through today?
he used the same term, whack.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's translate for a minute. They wanted her to classify this as a homicide. She wouldn't do it. Now that in and of itself is a red flag of the brightest color red you can get, because that clearly means there was a period of time where she was not comfortable saying what I'm looking at here is necessarily indicative of what you guys want it to be. And she never did. And now she's presumably going to come in and do that. But his response to that is fascinating, because he uses the same word he used, or one of the words, about Karen Reed, which is whack job. And I mean, I guess what he could have asked too, or he can still argue this in summation, is, was that emotional? Because he tried to say that, I called Karen Reed a whack job and many other things much worse than that because I was emotionally upset. Were you emotionally unhinged because a medical examiner told you to pound sand? I'm not going to fix a report to help your case when it's not what I'm happy to do. So, and then there's what you just said, Mike. Clearly, it's always the women, right? I mean, why would you call the medical examiner a whack job because she wouldn't change professionally? You have a disagreement professionally. Whack job. Karen Reed's a whack job because I was upset about causing an accident. So I think the female jurors for sure are definitely going to pick up on that. And I think it also further undermines Proctor's absolutely ridiculous claim that I said what I said because I knew she was guilty and I was pissed off.
Right.
Sounds like a real objective
yeah.
investigator.
Yeah. And I think it underlines too, like, if women don't go along with him, because Karen Reed wouldn't go along with him and take a plea, and the medical examiner wouldn't go along with him. So anytime a woman doesn't go along with him, whack job. Like that. Right. It's just, wow. It just, to me,
right.
It's just, yeah.
And the only woman that he would ever unload to is his sister, his, the one that he talks to. Because, by the way, did you see today that when he basically, I did not know that the suicide text was to his sister. That's interesting. And then he basically responded saying, yeah, like, I agree. I hope she does it.
Just crazy. A lot of comments coming, a lot of questions. Mazza, you have anything you want to add here?
Yeah, just the comments about the suicide. I mean, it was horrific having to watch Karen and her family listen on at that. That was first and foremost. But just to make those comments, there's just he tried to justify his way out of it. But there's just when you say you hope someone commits suicide, or hopes like they drive into a wall or jump off a cliff, there's no, once that text is out in the open like that and it's presented in court, that is absolutely damning against you. There's no way to say, oh, well, I was joking. Oh, I hope I killed herself. Because here's the thing. It's not like, say, for example, someone that was like, I have no example, so I'm just gonna strike it. It's not like he's supposed to be protecting himself as an objective police officer who's investigating this case. And he's saying that I hope that someone involved in an investigation that I'm actively investigating kills herself. Here's the thing. So let me ask you, Michael Proctor. You're a state police officer. You're being objective. Why would you take sides over one side or the other in a case that you're investigating? Why would you have any side if it wasn't for the fact that you did? It is evidence alone that he has a side. All that does is confirm this guy had a problem. This guy had a bias against her because he was favoring one side over the other, and that, oh, I hope she kills herself.
And the
Well,
answer,
yeah,
the answer is found, and there's the beauty, and they'll say this in summation, I'm sure. The answer, you don't have to look any farther than some of the earlier text from Proctor, which was, nope, Boston cop. That's the answer. He's rolling with the Alberts, period. Now, You may not know why. There's no evidence that Brian Albert, threatened him or any of that stuff. But the bottom line is they are trying to parse out his response about, Albert having a problem. And he said, nope. And then in the next sentence said he's a Boston cop in the same message, not even like 2 lines, or maybe it was 2 lines. I don't know, but it's like seconds apart. And the idea that the DA is in a position to say, well, what he said was, nope, Brian Albert's okay. And that the second sentence does not relate to the first one. It's just a general statement. By the way, he's a cop too, as opposed to the obvious interpretation that I think any sensible person would have, which is, no, he's good. He's a cop. I mean, and all you have to do is follow the investigative conduct thereafter. According to Proctor, this case was wrapped up in record time. They had their girl, again, though, he calls her a girl. They had their girl right away. I mean, they had the shoe and they had the McCabe's, and we have the tow truck driver coming down. There's nothing to do here. We don't need to look at phones. We don't need to interview witnesses.
All done.
No, we have our girl. So the only witness we need to talk to are the girls from Aruba, women from Aruba, excuse me. Those were more important people for him to talk about than the homeowner. That's all you need to know, that this investigation was practically speaking predetermined. And it's all you need to know when they're arguing with the medical examiner. I mean, they had in that text chat, if I understood it correctly, Proctor and Yuri had 2 conference calls and sent pictures, change it. The other guy says, oh, what a rookie move. You should have done this. And whether it was Proctor or the other one says, oh, well, if you had gone, it would have happened. I mean, it's just, these guys are a train wreck, and it gets worse and worse. And Lally, when he's finally done, when Jackson's finally done, I'm sitting here saying he's going to redirect him, isn't he? Just get him out of there. Like get him out of he can't. Oh, you're silenced.
You think he'd want to just forget about it? It's over. Like you said, get him done.
Repair the damage. And his attempt. Now, first of all, the judge should not have allowed 90% of that redirect. Was grossly inappropriate, commenting on the indictment, and the charges were upgraded by the grand. That was, in a different kind of case, that could be reversible error, implying that the grand jury indicted her for greater charges because obviously she's guilty. And they heard from the medical examiner with that lesser report, and they still indicted. I mean, he was trying to give the impression there that don't worry about the Emmy report. She's still guilty because the grand jury said so it's okay. And having Proctor give these memorized canned statements of what every other witness told him, which is also as classic hearsay as it gets. I mean, he had no firsthand knowledge, and everything he would try to do when he justified what he said was conclusory. Well, Colin Albert never went in that house. You don't know that. I mean, if anything, you were told by so-and-so, but he states everything as just investigative fact.
Yeah.
He
didn't look at Allie McCabe's 360. Well, he admitted that today.
Well, that was interesting too. When he said, I didn't want to look at that, I didn't ask them. But then later on, when they brought out on redirect, I thought they might have done this on cross, but it doesn't matter. When they presented him with the Allie McCabe and Colin Albert screenshots of the text messages that he pulled out, or maybe that was that was redirect. I think that might have led me to now go back and say, well, you previously said, you didn't care about Jen McCabe's phone and Life 360 because it meant nothing. Well, now they're presenting you with screenshots justifying what happened. Well, now you should be vetting their story. That might have been the time to wonder, at that point, did you find out what the 360 showed? Because that could have easily verified or dispelled what those screenshots show. It's just, none of it really matters, just because, this case is over. I think
it does seem over, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think it's been over for
a while,
to be honest.
Yeah.
But
this is just like driving a stake through it.
Yeah.
Someone had a question too that just like something like breaking news that I saw is that Brian, what's that guy? Brian Walsh is,
Walsh. Yeah, I heard
yeah,
something
his
come up.
attorney is now challenging a lot of stuff due to Proctor, and we had a question come in about that. Actually, let me find it here. Where did I go? I'm looking for. Hold on. Here it is. Does this open the door for others convicted with serious crimes to have their cases opened up for a reinvestigation due to what we are witnessing?
I believe so.
Yes, of
I
course.
think that's why the DA is so up in arms, like he's been.
Of course. And it doesn't mean, by the way, I mean, we talked about this the other day. There was this famous detective in Brooklyn, Louis Scarcella, where anyone he came into any contact with for 20 years was filing motions or going to, the Brooklyn DA's conviction review unit asking for relief. And some of his cases have been reversed, others haven't, because it really depends on the role you play. But if Proctor has a large role in the Walsh case, well, that's troubling for that case. But if he had a larger role in some of these other cases, they ought to be looked at. I mean, again, I really wish there would have been cross on how many other times have you done this? You've been so emotionally upset that you had to call the defendant all these names and no good answer. Either he has, because I'm trying to tell you she's not special and I didn't do anything, or she's very unique, which is even more dastardly in the context of this case. So you can expect lawyers are going to file motions. They're certainly going to, if nothing else, approach the DA's office and say, in the interest of justice, we need to know. I mean, before you file a motion, you need to know if there's any reason to do it. But we need discovery. We need to know what he did on other cases, or what's he doing on this case. And the other thing is this. I mean, there's a lot of cynicism about, well, Proctor's going to get protected. He's getting fired. Forget it. He's finished. He admitted under oath in court all these things he did. Prior to today and the other day, he had not. Even dirtbag, scumbag police officers like him get due process. Okay, so when this case is over, something will happen to him. And also, if for no other reason, then he's useless to the DA. Okay. So unless they want to keep him, for a no-show janitor job because they feel sorry for him, every DA's office has what in New York we call colloquially, the naughty list.
Exactly. That's how we started this post commission actually in Mass,
right?
because they found out about the naughty list and they're like, let's make it official.
And if there have been specific findings of a lack of credibility or a strong basis to believe that a witness is not credible, they go on that list, and it gets disclosed as Brady material in basically any case involving him. The bottom line is this: Michael Proctor will probably never testify ever again as a DA witness when this case is over, because look at him.
Exactly.
So if he's useless to the DA, I mean, you can't assign him
as an investigator. Yeah, I mean, he's done.
Him to a new case.
And I think that the post commission, like that, we have this new post commission that came out. They certify police officers, and it started because of those lists that you're talking about. And I think he's going to get decertified. People are already filing complaints against him. It's just that process. It's going to take a while. I think the union's already going to throw him under the bus.
Forget the union. Yeah. Well, look, they took their statement down, which is very ominous for him. They had their union rep apparently in court today. Okay, whatever. He's still a member of the union for now. Union reps have to do what, the union is the most loyal thing in the world, whatever. But the other thing is this: he made the front page of the Herald today, as you know. Obviously a lot of people like Howie Carr and what he writes, and, it's colorful and it's not going to stop, and it's going to go on and on. He's going to be on the news tonight everywhere, even beyond Boston, this kind of stuff. So he's finished. But the other thing, the fallout for him, even if the state police didn't want to get rid of him, at some point it's going to be out of their hands, because at some point the governor is going to be responsible for this politically and take the heat. And she's a woman, which is even worse for him. And what do you think the women voters are going to think if the state police and the Norfolk DA's office think this is okay? Which is why it's so disturbing that they would call him when you call a witness, you're vouching for their credibility. You're basically not literally telling the jury, I believe him, but you are saying, we believe he's telling the truth. And there is no way that any sane DA in any state, in anywhere, could possibly believe that this guy is absolutely telling the truth. And even if you think he's telling the truth about, I didn't plant evidence, I didn't tinker with the taillight, who could possibly believe his explanation for the messages? Who could possibly believe his explanation for, how Colin Albert didn't end up in the report as it relates to Julie Albert and the gift and the Juliana Nagel and the Ring video and all that stuff? None of it makes any sense. And then, of course, there's his demeanor. How many times did you see him today when he was getting one of those big questions where he literally closed his eyes for about 3 or 4 seconds and just took the body blows and then steadied himself and opened his eyes and then went right back to staring
Head
at the floor?
down, head down. He
Okay.
wasn't looking at the
Yeah.
jury today.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
none of that jury stuff except for the very end, which was at that point,
Too late.
just nobody wants to hear, thank you, jurors. What they want to see you do is slither off the stand like the serpent that you are and just get out of our courtroom. And all the DA did was elongate the process, make them think about him more, keep him up there longer, and have him talking more and more. And I'm never going to understand what these people are doing. Never. It doesn't make any sense.
The way he stalled on some of it wasn't even that he was stalling. It was that he just knew he was dead in the water.
Yeah, he was absorbing. He was steadying and steeling himself, knowing, look, the guy's a police officer, so he knows what's on the cover of the paper. Okay. He knows that he's reputation for the rest of his life. He's a disgraced cop. He knows that. Apparently if his wife forgives him, that's on them. I don't, that's their own business, but he's finished. I mean, look at him. What is he going to do?
When you look back at how this whole thing came to be with the murder of John O'Keefe, you look at people like Jen McCabe and Michael Proctor, and you say to yourself, they didn't have to involve themselves in this particular matter. They could have just let it run its course and never involved themselves. There was no reason why they had, unless of course that, like we said, it was potentially an orchestrator where they tried to get Karen not to go there and tried to get John isolated, if that's one way. But even so, Michael Proctor was under no obligation to do anything that he did at all. And to me, one of the biggest things, and I kind of had a moment where I said, wow, it opened up my eyes a little bit more, was when Alan Jackson dug in on Sallyport and mentioned what we've mentioned a few times, is that there are Massachusetts State Police barracks closer to Dighton than there is to Canton. And it just kind of hit me, and maybe this is an obvious thought, but I said to myself, because they couldn't go to the Massachusetts State Police barracks, because if they did, there would have been a lot of questions as to what in the blue hell they were doing. So they had to go onto territory that had the same value system as they did in terms of framing Karen, which was only one location, which was the Canton Police Department in the town of, I already said it, Canton, Massachusetts.
Of course.
Can you imagine in the summation when the jury finds out that for some reason in this blizzard that by then was happening, Berkowitz felt the need to personally go in the Sallyport and do all of that. And he's the same guy who a few days later just driving by the same way, Yuri and Proctor, who at this point are like, Tweedledum and Tweedledummer, the two of them just happened to gratuitously find all this evidence, which they both said revealed itself to them as if by the power of God, because they're on the side of the angels. And these are such good detectives that these pieces of taillight willed themselves out of the snow to reveal themselves to these wonderful detectives. Who's believing any of this?
Nobody.
Got
a comment here. The stunt he pulled about Yannetti at the end was insane. Mike, can you play the TV's quick interview statement from Yannetti right after court? Maybe later. I don't have it queued up, but did you guys see that? Did you
I
see
didn't
the
see
interview?
I have the link, and I
what
can
we're
get that to
talking
you in chat, Mike. I'll get it for you.
Did you see it though, Mazza?
I did watch it. Yep, I did
You
watch it.
what did you think about it? What did he
Well,
say?
Yannetti was
Tell us.
pretty blind. Well, let me be honest with you. When I played it, I had it on low volume while I was listening
That's
live
why.
to the show because I had to do both. Sorry. It was like it just came up, and I had just joined the show, and I'm like, oh man, I gotta listen. I was listening to Mark and Yannetti talk at the same time. It's actually on. Actually, no, I thought I YouTube this. Let me actually. Yeah, it's on X. I'll get you the link.
Well, while
We'll
you're
play it a little later,
while
maybe.
you're pulling that up, as far as the first part of this, how tone deaf can you be if you're the DA? Okay, you can get this guy out of here, and the last thing you want to do is emphasize for the jury that this cop called Karen Reed what most people now call the R word, which is another word I don't like.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
That one I really don't like.
Yeah.
But all you're doing is emphasizing that happened because I hate the lawyer because the lawyer attacked my ethics. And when he went into his little spiel about, this was an integrity investigation and
Oh my God. He started
attacking my ethics,
crying too. It was so
and it's like
yeah.
attacking your ethics because you're a corrupt piece of garbage.
Oh my
You're not
God.
worthy of your position. Okay.
That was the worst moment too. Like everyone in the chat was like, "Your integrity? Are you kidding?" After all that stuff, and now you're saying your integrity of the investigation. It was
It's
just,
all an act. He doesn't
oh,
care. All of this mock apology. If Lally was a real, well, that's not fair. If he was a better DA, what he would have done,
Put it loosely.
I need, I need to be a little nicer, although he
he was
doesn't.
Yeah,
just
it's
on the
all right.
lowest
It's all
rung
good.
of like
He,
quality at all.
he never even told this witness when you go in there, look at her. You have to look at her. And I'm going to ask you, is there anything you want to say about it? And I know it's awful, but they're not going to object to that. He needed to look at her, even though he thinks she's guilty and wants her to go down to save himself. He needed to look at her and say, I'm sorry for the disgusting things I said.
Yeah.
And he never did it. He was never asked it. He never looked at it. And all he wanted to do is, woe is me, woe is me. It was unprofessional, as if it's beneath him.
Were you surprised that because I was wondering, because all of us talked about that. We talked about it on our last show. Other commentators said the same thing, that he never looked in her, eyes and said, I'm sorry that I did this. Were you surprised that they didn't do it today? Like I was almost expecting maybe they might, try to salvage that and try that, but they didn't even try it.
At this point, do you seriously think Lally is even capable of prepping a witness before trial? If he had properly prepped Proctor, okay, this is what a real like there I go again. Whatever. Let's just call it what it is. What a real DA who had to handle Proctor would have done this. Now, first of all, a real DA would never examine Proctor on direct because this case shouldn't be prosecuted. But if you had a real DA doing this, you would tell him, look, this is not going to be pleasant. Okay. And I'm not your friend. I'm not your lifeline. Of course, Lally is Mr. Objection and making it sound like I'm here to protect Proctor, which is the worst way to do it. If you as the DA want to establish credibility and a bond with the jury, you need to tell the jury, I don't approve of this guy, but he's the witness. Doesn't mean he's lying about the case. We're going to get through this and do it. And he didn't. Instead, he defended the witness. What he should have told him was, this is going to be unpleasant. I'm going to go through these messages and I'm going to tell you that, what do you want to say about this? And who do you want to say it to? And do it. And then the other thing you would tell, and you'd say, look at her. Don't look at the floor. Cut the crap. I know it's hard. And then the other thing you would say is, on cross-examination, you're going to get clobbered. Okay. And I want you to know something else. I'm not going to be objecting. Okay. So when Jackson is like on the verge of having a stroke coming after you about how disgusting your conduct is, don't look at me for a lifeline. Put on your big boy pants. You have to take it because the jury needs to know that I agree with them that this is wrong. Okay. And if I redirect you, you could redirect on the integrity of the investigation, but not to explain that, I said that about Yannetti because, he offended me, my ethics. Well, you are unethical. So who cares? Nobody cares. Nobody feels sorry for you. And so Lally completely blew it. And instead, he gave the jury the image that he was defending what he did, that he was justifying and rationalizing it. And this is just a couple days after he pulled the stunt with the inverted video. And I mean, I don't know if you're the jury, I can't believe that they have any use for this DA at all. And they just assume, you know, he's basically one of them in a suit.
Absolutely. No question about it. It was shocking today that I still can't get over the Albert stuff. I don't know the Alberts, and then got a guy losing a gun and his badge.
The Kevin Albert thing was, I mean, that was that, but that's also when you sit there and say, we're really watching a cartoon. This is not
It
like
just
these
keeps
people,
going on and on.
These prosecutors are so incompetent. They know all of these things and nothing deters them. And that's why, you know, the word we used to use, I think we have, they're like zombie prosecutors. They just keep coming. You can't put them down. You can humiliate them in court and they'll just keep coming back. I mean, you saw what happened with Proctor today, and they're going to come back tomorrow like nothing happened and call more witnesses as if everything's fine. Who does that? I mean, they have to know it's over. They have to know that.
What do you think about this Tully? Tully got on right at the end. Didn't hear too much about him, but what's your initial
Well, my
thoughts on him?
first thought is, why are we having a complete regurgitation of O'Hara from a week or two ago? Is there any real purpose other than just having him say about this search? But then the thing that occurred to me, that the light went on for me, they try to establish, we know what we're looking for, okay? And we knew that, like, she's missing a lot of taillight. That's what they said. And they found 3 small pieces, if you will, small pieces during the search, which of course they did at night and all of that. So my first thought was, if they knew they were looking for a lot of taillight, okay, and they struck gold in some sense by finding 3 pieces underneath a ton of snow, and they knew there was a lot more left, why didn't they go back the next morning when it's daylight and do another real search? Like he described it, like, we're a paramilitary organization and we get the ACE team, we find evidence. So if you just found 3 pieces of light, by this point in time, Proctor's already told the jury on the timeline, I knew she was guilty. We had the car, or we're getting the car. It's missing the taillight. So they just abandoned. And then Yuri comes up with the idea, well, we'll just drive by every now and then and see. Who believes this? So I think his test, I don't think he's come off yet as a liar yet. I mean, I don't know what else is coming, but what I don't understand is why Lally thinks this helps, because all it's going to do is lead the jury to wonder, if they're so good at searching, then why didn't they do it in the daylight? And if they couldn't do it in the daylight, why didn't they do it the next day in the daylight? This is a Boston police officer dead on the lawn of another police officer. You can't get the CERT team out more than once. You can't get them out in daylight. You can't get the state police to secure a crime scene that morning. You can't get your trained investigator Proctor to take a freaking picture of the taillight that he claims is destroyed. None of this makes any sense.
Question from Kelly. She said Proctor said he wasn't reprimanded for his text, yet Tully said he was.
That's correct. But he didn't say how he was reprimanded. He didn't seem, I mean.
Yeah, what was the reprimand? You're in double secret probation.
Yeah, right.
So who's sending us the comment? Porzingis is out, but I guess
he's out.
I guess
I got an alert on that. Yeah.
Tonight or long term?
Just tonight. That's the only confirmation. Yeah.
All right. Well, if they lose tonight, they're going to need him for game 4.
It'll be 2-1 if they lose, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I think Tully did say that there was some kind of reprimanding, and Proctor kind of shrugged it off and said, no, not really. I mean,
shows you their culture there.
It shows you their culture. I mean, he
Yeah.
wasn't copied on the messages, and obviously there were no women copied on the messages. I might have elicited that too. Just one throwaway question of all these people, are any of them
Are any
female?
women on there? Yeah.
I mean,
Any minorities? Any women?
yeah.
Yeah.
Any
Uh,
any any Asians, right?
Any Asians? Yeah. Don the jeweler says, "What about Yannetti showing up to Proctor's sister's school?" I think Yannetti denied
Yeah.
that. Is that what happened? I
Yeah.
don't. I don't. Who you going to trust, Yannetti or Proctor?
Well, first of all, the sister is involved in these text messages.
Exactly.
Is potentially a defense witness. She works at the school. So if they're there to subpoena her and that's where they know she is, it doesn't offend me in the least. If he's like looking for her kids and making a scene, well, that's different. But why he's getting you of all people have forfeited the right to righteous indignation about what other people are doing in the form of what you consider harassment, given what you did. So with all due respect, trooper, nobody gives a shit about your feelings because a lawyer was potentially there to subpoena your sister, who the two of you were talking about, his client ought to kill herself.
Yeah. What about Michael Proctor's wife putting out this screed, this email with lots of grammatical errors, spelling
Oh
errors,
my goodness,
and
I
it's
went up
just
on
about
that
how
one.
they got bullied and how
I
they're
cringe.
such victims.
Look,
Poor us. Poor us.
I have mixed feelings about it because it first of all, I mean, it's ridiculous, obviously, and I know she's like really defensive of him, and we're fine. I know she throws the kids, out the kid card, if you will. On the other hand, I mean, I don't have any sympathy for Proctor per se, but I mean, there's two kids, right? Two of them young.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
right now they don't know what's going on.
They're pushing to play the video in the comments, Mike.
In a few days, a few years, they're going to know that their father is a disgraced police officer who is just poison to everyone. And for the kids, I mean, that's horrible.
Imagine having the audacity to be so upset about that and write a message like that. And then basically through it all, I mean, it's like I said in my post the other day, John O'Keefe is dead. He was murdered. John O'Keefe isn't even alive. There's no person in this whole saga that has had it worse than John O'Keefe. He is no longer on this earth in a living sense. He was murdered. That no one has it worse than him. Karen Reed was framed for his murder. So if she wants to complain or they want to complain, it's one thing. But in essence, in comparison to what John O'Keefe and how he was murdered and Karen Reed and how she's been framed, there's nobody that can complain more than them. I mean, more than Karen, I should say. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You want to play that video?
Yeah.
Let's roll it.
All right, we'll play the video quickly here.
A few people are commenting. It's just David Yannetti's response after court to some of the comments made by Tully.
Do I have it up now? You see it? Yeah.
Yeah,
I
you
can
got
see it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. No sound. Hold on 1 second.
See, do you know what he's talking about with that picture that was going on Twitter? There's like a guy that looks like you talking to Lucky Lochran.
Aiden, that was me.
Oh, that was you. Okay,
yes,
all right.
yeah,
So that was
yeah.
you. Okay.
Any lawyer is going to prepare a witness to testify.
Steve.
I took the off day and I went down to Canton because I wanted Lucky Lochran to go through his route with me.
Okay.
Lucky Lochran asked to meet in the Kennedy School parking lot. I had suggested meeting at the DPW. I didn't know who worked there, who went to school there. I don't know Canton. I'm not a South Shore guy. I met with Lucky Lochran with my investigator. We left the parking lot. He took me on his route. We went back to the parking lot, picked up the car, and we left. He made up a conversation out of whole cloth that somebody supposedly approached me and had a conversation with me about leaving.
Something about his sister. I guess his sister works at that school. I don't know.
I have
She's like,
no idea.
Yeah.
I have no idea. But I was a firsthand witness today to perjury by the lead investigator who is framing my client. I was a firsthand witness to that today. That explains my reaction in court.
When will Lucky be? Do you expect the Commonwealth to call Lucky, or will that just be a defense
I don't know
witness?
if they'll call him or not. I mean, he's on their witness list, but he will be a defense witness if he's not called by the Commonwealth. I promise you that.
And does his story remain the same from what we've seen in court filing?
Yes. Yeah. And good for him. He lives in that community. and he will not be bullied. The truth is the truth. And I look forward to putting Brian Laughlin on the stand.
Thank you so
Excellent.
much.
Thank you, David.
I love Yannetti, man. He's not a South Shore guy. He's a North Shore guy like I am. I love him. I love
Big
that.
difference.
That was such a great, like, honest response. Phenomenal, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, one of the things that's interesting in this case is everybody talks to the press during the trial. While the jury is sitting on the case, and nobody's complaining in this case. I mean, it's been happening a lot, and we know what Morrissey and that stunt that he pulled. They might be getting some flack in New York for that. Maybe not. Depends on the judge. But on the other hand, who can't relate to what he was saying if Proctor is just flat out making up stories in this trial, trying to justify his own pathetic and disgraceful misconduct by blaming the lawyer and then claiming that he's like stalking his family, when it turns out one of the witnesses that the DA is going to be terrified of, actually said, that it was my idea. And by the way, you better believe when that examination happens, the direct examination of Lucky Laughlin, I mean, just a made-for-TV name with this whole circus.
Lucky. I love Lucky.
His
Yeah.
name's Lucky. I mean, another, just like everyone's laughing at the mass whole circus nationwide. Here comes Lucky. They're going to direct him on, did we meet on that day? And where did we meet? And whose idea was that? Why did we go there? And so they're going to actually have another example
Of them
of a
lying.
witness who's just a plow driver. He's not a biased guy, who will expose the perjury of Michael Proctor. That's why, Lally, you don't put up a perjurer and then when he gets clobbered on cross, redirect him because you think he's going to tell you the truth. So when he lies, do you think the jury is going to believe Proctor or the plow driver who did nothing but plow the road and say, what do you want from me? I didn't see a body, but I saw the car.
Yeah. I'd take Yannetti over Proctor without Lucky. Add Lucky in. It's like, come on. It's so obvious.
It's such another example of leading with your chin, that Proctor is going to be impeached by this witness because of the stunt that Lally did on redirect. Dumb, dumb, dumb.
Dumb and dumber. Another question came in. What about the socks and evidence? Did O'Keefe take the shoes off in Albert's house? Would they have dog hairs on
I don't
them?
know, but I thought they showed us a picture today of O'Keefe's body with socks on it in the hospital. I thought I saw that. So,
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
To me, that's, what else do you say?
And this
I mean,
is
I don't think you want to go down the rabbit hole with the belt and all that. And,
yeah, no.
if there's strong evidence of a conspiracy and a frame up, I would stick to the strong points. When you start latching on to the fringe stuff, you may give jet fuel to some of the people who live in,
Wendy World
and collect towels and live in Wendy World.
What do you call them? What kind of towels? Wet towels?
That's what he calls himself, right?
Wet towel. I like that one. Wet towel.
Well,
I don't even understand that. Why does he call himself a towel?
I don't know. I don't know. But when he was making stupid comments to me,
I might be able to possibly explain this. So I'm a South Park fan. So in the episode of South Park, when the character he has his emoji is Towley, okay, from South Park. Now, there's some scene in like the first episode that character's ever when the guy goes, "You're a towel," and he goes, "You're a towel," right back at him. So I think that the joke of "I'm a towel" somehow is varying from that in some way. That's been my theory for
definitely. I think that's 100% what it is.
And for him to name himself after a cartoon makes sense. That's actually on point. He's kind of a cartoon.
Well, he was doing more of his passive aggressive gaslighting the other day, and I simply told him, I don't want to deal with you other than to say, if you someday aspire to be admitted to the bar of any state, I know you're a law student, you should think of your credibility more. And just, one way to do that would be not to call yourself a towel as an adult, but, just when you send these messages and do things, be more credible, because, there's a character and fitness part of being admitted to the bar, and you just calling yourself a towel and acting like that isn't going to do it.
Someone said, this is a good point. Lena on me says, what's crazy about Proctor's wife is she called Karen Reed supporters their jobs. She can't be mad at anyone.
Absolutely fact. Absolute fact. She has no business being mad at anybody when she was trying to take down everybody at their own jobs, which is insane. And some of these cops have actually gone and sought out some of these people trying to go after them for even messaging Lizzie Proctor online.
Like Katie. Remember
Yeah, that's right.
Katie?
Yep,
Katie's
Katie.
been on
Yep,
our show, both of our
yep,
shows, and they
yep,
harassed her. They really
yep.
harassed her.
I mean, look, again, I don't know what's going on in the family, but if she's making these messages saying, defending him and woe is me, and she's been basically harassing people and attempting to get them fired and saying things. I mean, if this wasn't Canton, you know, there might be some adults in the law enforcement community who, I'm not saying go out and arrest her, but might have a chat with her. You know, everybody doesn't need to get arrested for everything, but you know, you could start going down the line of criminal harassment with some of that kind of behavior and defamation and whatnot, which is not a criminal thing, but still inappropriate. But the fact that this is Canton, again, you know, forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown.
It's crazy to me is that, Proctor, he had a choice in all this, right? It's believed that he had a heavy, heavy hand in this beyond what we even possibly even know. And at some point there was a conscious decision, basically, do I have to help these people or don't I? And I bet you when he was sitting on that stand today, he probably said to himself, man, I should have just told these people you're all in it on your own and fuck y'all and, forget this, because now he's got his hand in it. Not only does he have his hand in it, they went to Sallyport. There's video footage of him in the Sallyport, and it's clearly he's on the right side of the rear tail, the right side of the vehicle near the rear tail light. It's unbelievable. It's just there's more evidence on him in what he's done than there is on people that were actually inside the house.
There, look, it's another coincidence in a hell of a lot of coincidences that of all the gin joints in all the towns, there's Proctor, who happens to be the guy who's just kind of meandering and hanging out in an inverted video by the magic taillight that he refused to take a picture of, and all the other things that he did. And again, there comes a point where you say, I just don't believe any of this. And it does become nefarious. And you know that they're loaded with information from the federal government, which was another message that the DA just ignored. Okay, when the feds say we're going to dump a couple thousand pages of materials that we believe in the interest of justice that the defendant should have, the majority of which are probably exculpatory or certainly helpful, and it includes this kind of evidence. It includes all those text messages that you didn't share, the phone records. If you're a real DA, you sit there and say, what are we doing here? Okay. And when you hear testimony in this case, or questioning, I should say, like when Brian Higgins was on the stand and they alluded to him being in the Sallyport at certain days and certain times with Chief Wiggum at certain days and certain times, that's not good, because that means they know something. And that means if they know when those two guys were in the Sallyport, they know when the other guys were in the Sallyport too. And then after all of this, out of nowhere, mid-trial, Adam Lally pulls a stunt where he pulls out a fake video. Yes, fake for the critics. When you invert something and conceal material and relevant data, it's fake. It's a fraud on the jury. Oh, yes. And that's just another coincidence. I mean, at this point, are you supposed to believe that he didn't know that was inverted, but Yuri did, and they prepped together, and Proctor didn't? I mean, Proctor told you it wasn't inverted. Now, now he's talking about a different video, which we don't even know what he's talking about. But, it's just, there are so many coincidences that all seem to work against the same people involved in the case that are DA witnesses. And you don't see this many types of coincidences in cases. And I think, when you first hear someone say, oh, it's a frame job and a cover up, yeah, your natural reaction is, oh, that seems a little, why would they do that? But the more you learn, every piece of evidence that comes out tends to support it more, even if it doesn't prove it on its own. Then you know, the needle just keeps tilting towards, my God, they really did something dirty here. And I just wonder if they're still holding something big that they have yet to unleash, because they have as we said earlier, a track record of doing that. And if it involves Proctor, it means they would have decided not to even give him a chance to explain it. We're just going to hold it. And I wonder, I don't know if that's the case or not, but it feels like there's a lot more here that they're just hanging on to. Just the way the confidence they have is, it's real, it's palpable. It's not an act.
Sarah has a question. She said, why is no one talking about the Sally Port video being acquired during trial? It was intentionally not acquired in the beginning by Mass State Police, and someone must have changed their mind about it.
Yeah, after they inverted it and changed the timestamps and taped. I mean, look, I'm not a video expert, but, and maybe somebody is, what could the possible explanation be for people appearing and reappearing out of nowhere and the times jumping? I mean, that means, you know, it's not real. You know, it's inverted. So you have three problems, right? It's inverted. The times are messed up and people are jumping in and out. Is that a splice job? Have they mixed it with another video and they didn't cut it right? What is it? I mean, how do they explain this? Why didn't they find this video earlier? Why didn't they turn it over? And why, when they did turn it over, did it look like this? Again, you have to file that in the too many coincidences. How can you possibly believe that that's an honest thing?
Yeah, I mean, either that or, you know, people had ghostly ability where they could walk through walls and fade away and disappear.
Apparition.
That's
Well,
a realistic take,
I thought you heard today, and this was real. This was interesting, that one of the people who appeared and reappeared was Berkowitz, which would,
Yeah.
and I'm not a tech guy, so
Yep.
if I'm wrong, I apologize. I'm not trying to make something up. But if Berkowitz is appearing and reappearing, doesn't that suggest that that's one of the people they're trying to excavate and screwed it up?
Exactly.
As if he was there and then they cut it in the wrong place or something, that they're trying to hide Berkowitz.
It always seems like they're trying to hide him and hide Colin.
I'll tell you one thing about editing video, and I'm trained in it, is that you always want to watch your edit from start to finish carefully all the way through. And if they didn't do that and they just said, okay, well, we edited it, and they didn't, because sometimes what happens when you edit a clip is sometimes you cut a clip and then you cut another one. And what happens is you have one in there that's supposed to be removed and one that's supposed to stay. Well, what sometimes can happen is you select the opposite one. And if you don't go back and double check it, there you go.
Especially if it's tiny too. Like those, I've done some editing and
Yeah.
I'm an amateur at it. And
Yeah.
so like it happens to me when it's like those little tiny little like edits where it's like 1 second or it's easy to miss.
Yep. And that 1 second, if it displays on screen like we saw in court, let's say, like to your example, if it was just a little microscopical moment, that can overlay. If someone accidentally drags it where they can have two videos and combine them, they can drag it up to one column and then one row and it overlaps over the other. Suddenly you have a fade effect where suddenly someone's fading in and out.
Exactly.
So there's all kinds of stuff that can go on there. It's just, microdots can explain. Someone said, oh yeah, microdots will explain for sure. So,
but I mean, if you're Lally and summation's happening, I mean, his summation, by the way, will be the most fascinating summation. Part of me says I can't tolerate to watch it because I'm just going to want to, stab myself in the neck just to not have to watch this. But on the other hand, how is he going to try to argue with a straight face that, this is a good case, these witnesses are credible, the evidence is strong, and you go to the video and you say, how do you explain the inverted video? And meanwhile, the jury's looking at you saying, you're the one who did this. I mean, you didn't even have the witness tell us that this was not what you claimed it was. And I don't know how you do that. I just don't know how you do that. I don't know how you get up in front of the jury and try to argue that Proctor was credible in the part about the case, even if you say we don't excuse what he did. I don't know how you say Higgins was credible with his phone and Albert with the phone, the butt dials, the Googles, the this, the attempt to bully the ME, I mean, you could go on and on with 20 other things. And all they have to do is show reasonable doubt, which just means it's possible, it's plausible.
Easy.
It's over. And it
It
has
is over. It seems so over, except for Kevin and some of these other whack jobs. Audrey says, Mark, did Proctor open the door for third-party culprit defense when he brought it up today?
yes.
It's that
Yeah.
easy? Yeah, he just, yeah.
He told the jury, okay, which by the way was totally improper, but he did it. And for all you know, that's a very good reason why Jackson may not have objected. Okay. He basically testified over and over again. Brian Albert had nothing to do with this. Colin Albert had nothing to do with this. It was all her. He never went in the house. He said that too. The defense absolutely has a right. Why should this witness, the DA's witness, have a right to tell the jury that, and the defense doesn't have a right to introduce evidence to the contrary? Yeah, that totally opens the door.
We got a great question here about Sue O'Connell from NBC Boston on X. She said, Lally is up. He asked about the case investigation. Proctor says it was done with integrity. We talked about this. One juror laughed. Mark, have you seen jurors react like this before?
Not in a serious case. When I mean serious people. This is a murder trial. It's highly contested. There's a lot at stake. And these are serious lawyers. So no, of course not. I mean, the only time I've ever seen jurors laugh is sometimes you get a repeat customer. This is from like the DA days. Because from the DA days, you try a repeat customer who's on like his 57th robbery conviction and decides that despite 8 videos on the subway of him snatching a chain and 37 civilian witnesses, all of whom are nuns and people like that, that he's going to go to trial and he's going to tell his story. Yeah. And I mean, it's ridiculous. And there are times where you see some chuckling and eye rolling. For a juror to laugh at a state trooper who is the lead investigator in a high profile murder case, no, has to be unprecedented. But it's not surprising given what you see. And once again, it's lack of preparation. One word that Proctor should have been told not to mention above all others in his testimony is integrity and his abundant dose of it. That's just begging. It's leading with your chin. It's just begging to get hit again. And listen, if the reporters all see it, everyone sees it that's capable of seeing it. I'm sure someone in the DA's office sees it, but they decided to do it. And you know what? They're going to come back tomorrow and do it again. They don't care.
We got a lot of comments tonight. A lot of people giving memberships. We're probably going to have to do a membership show soon. Thank you, Jen Del Rio, gifted 10 memberships. Another comment here. Free Karen Reed says, let's send emails, MP's conduct, and demand a public response. I'll reply to this with email address, and maybe Stephanie can post it. I mean, I know people have been already emailing. Do you think that will help, Mark, or do you think it's even needed at this point?
I mean, look, the more people who in any situation publicly complain about a corrupt police officer, and even if you don't think he's corrupt, who is just unfit for duty, he lacks the responsibility, the maturity, sensitivity, and many other things that you would expect in a police officer. I mean, look at him, what he was doing. He's almost like a thug with a badge. It's a dangerous thing. He's not qualified. He's surrendered his right to do it. He may very well have planted evidence, destroyed evidence. Who knows? That's what they're alleging. There certainly appears to be evidence that supports that. So he ought to go, and he's useless anyway, because you can't call him as a witness. You can't assign cases to him. So if I'm a taxpayer, why am I paying this guy to do what? Get him gone yesterday. So it's a high profile case. He's in the news. He's going to continue to be in the news. When she gets acquitted, he's going to be a lead story and one of the reasons why. When he gets sued, he's going to be in the news again. If he ultimately is back in the crosshairs of the feds, he's going to be in the news again. To me, it's just a matter of time with him, but it can only help if more public pressure is put on it. But I mean, I think there's a lot of people that they probably should think about complaining about. I mean,
Bucanic, definitely.
look, I think
Whatever you want to call him.
I think the one person of every single individual in this case who should get the most criticism is Morrissey.
Yeah, definitely.
He's the one who can pull the plug now.
Exactly.
And instead, he's giving ridiculous press conferences, either dissembling, lying, or being misled, not correcting the record. He's allowing this charade to go on. You could argue he's responsible for this crisis in Canton where the public doesn't trust the cops. They don't trust the police. They don't trust the DA. And his attitude is, we're good. This is fine. Nothing's wrong here. So
my theory goes back to what we talked about. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, a lot of those citizens can't call the local Canton police or the state police, so their only option is to call the FBI. Like that's who they call now. They call the FBI for local issues in Canton related to law enforcement.
If you were a woman in distress or trouble, and your only option were the state police in Norfolk County, would you call them?
No, I'd call the FBI just like they do. That's what they do now. They call the FBI, which is that's not how it's supposed to work. You're not supposed to treat the FBI like your local police, but that's their only option now.
If you can't even call the local cops or the state police because of this, and then of course the DA's office, who ultimately is in charge of, when you really get down to it, keeping the community safe, they're all in defending this. That's the scary part. They're not even concerned. They're defending Proctor. They couldn't even put him on the stand in a way to tell the jury, I don't think he's lying about the case, but we recognize he's filth, okay? But we got to deal with this. We'll get through this together. No, they're defending him. They're rationalizing his behavior. They're justifying his behavior. And so they're part of the problem.
You got any comment, Mazda, on anything?
No, I just I think Morrissey's big fear about all this is that, and the reason why he's allowing us to go the way it's going is that he's just ultimately afraid that this is it's like a question that came in earlier on the super chat. Once the top pops off this whole situation here, they're gonna have to answer for all these other people that Michael Proctor's had arrested, had cases on. All that stuff's gonna come up to the light, and it's gonna be a real mess for the DA's office, and I think that's what he fears the most.
Well, you also wonder if at this point Morrissey has a conflict in the sense, is he doing this to try to save his own neck?
Yes, I mean, that's what I think. Yeah, I think that's it. It's about him.
I don't know if he's in the federal target.
That's it. I think it's about that Fed. Yep.
But look, I don't know, but it's not inconceivable that the conduct of the DA's office is part of this. And if you're the DA and you're prosecuting a bad case with the hope of basically like a puncher's chance, the 1 in a million, that if I get a conviction, it'll turn the heat off and the public will say, look what I did. Well, then that's a conflict, okay? Because you don't get to sacrifice an innocent woman and put on a show trial to try to save your own ass. That's right. not how this works. And if he's doing that, then he has a classic conflict. I mean, he's putting his interests above that of the public good and safety of his office in the community. And, we'll have to wait and see again when this is all over where the feds come out. But I can tell you this, if any of these people, whether they be cops, prosecutors, Alberts, McCabe's, whatever they are, if they do get stuck in a federal investigation and get indicted, which I'm not saying they will, if they do, I have no idea. But if they do, when you think, and if they end up getting convicted of crimes, there are these things called the federal sentencing guidelines, which are very rigid. And federal sentencing is a complicated thing where they go through so many different things. And do you fall within the guidelines? And do you go above or below? Is there a reason for an upward or downward departure? And you calculate points for this and that. And, you want to get the lowest score you can get when you calculate these guidelines. And one of the biggest things when you're a defendant, you want to get 3 points reducted reduced for, acceptance of responsibility. That's a big thing. Or cooperating. They have these things, they call them 5K1 letters, where the government goes to bat with you and it helps you. So if you're like Sammy Gravano and you kill 20 people, but you testify against other guys, you don't go to jail, that kind of thing. Well, one way not to help yourself is to be aware of these terrible things that you're doing and to then participate in a show trial and perjure yourself and do other things, which elongated a horrible process for Karen Reed, is going to cost her temporarily a fortune temporarily, because she's going to own like half the state when this is over, but temporarily, cost lawyers fees, the stress of, potentially thinking you could be going to prison for the rest of your life, the humiliation for what you're being subjected to, especially the other day and today as well. Those are major aggravating factors if it ever comes down to you having to get sentenced. And there's going to be a lot of people who are probably going to wish that maybe they handled it differently. And which to me, I go back to Proctor and say, I mean, if you're wrong, you're wrong. Obviously, I was wrong. I cannot believe he testified. I didn't think that there was any chance in hell that this guy was going to testify. And I'm sure he's thinking right now.
Yeah. Your advice to have not testify was on the mark, because he shouldn't have testified. I mean, looking back on this, it's so obvious you were right on that.
Does he think that he's in a better position today?
No.
Or 3 days ago?
Way worse, personally and for the case.
Right. So personally, he takes the fifth. Okay. Do you get criticized? Yes. Is it in the newspaper? Yes. Does everybody think you committed crimes? Yes. Okay, fine. You testify like you did. Are you still in the papers? Yes. Does everybody think you're a piece of shit? Yes. Even worse.
Yes.
And are you in a terrible position? And does everybody think your crimes committed crimes? Yes. 100 times worse. Are you now more or less at risk of being prosecuted? More.
Yes.
Is your career over? Yes. So what have you accomplished?
Nothing. You've made it worse.
And if he doesn't testify, I'm not sure all of these text messages come out. Maybe some, but not all.
From a federal perspective, to transition this thing for a second here, because I just had a huge thought come over me. And I've said this for a while. Wouldn't it, the feds were maybe trying to stop this before it came to trial, and in good conscience, they couldn't allow this thing to go to trial. Now, wouldn't it also benefit from a federal investigation standpoint to just sit back and just let this whole trial play out and collect information? Basically, let Alan Jackson, David Yannetti, Eliza Little all go to work. And I mean, they probably got more information now than they had before, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I would say, yeah. I mean, in a literal sense, do they have more evidence to use and research? And of course. But if you accept the fact that the feds are doing this honestly, and there's always going to be people who don't, whatever, but if you have no reason to doubt that they're acting as you would hope that the Norfolk DA would act, they would never tell a criminal defendant, we need you to sit through a murder trial and subject yourself to the possibility, even though you'll get out at some point, of a life sentence, because we need it for our investigation. But yeah, no, they're going to gather more evidence from this. And also, don't underestimate what that means. Not only does it lead you to targets and what to do, but everybody knows a very common way the feds work. They develop sources and they start small and build up, because in a case like this, if there's ever any hope of cracking what happened, you need people who know what happened. And if you believe the defense theory, those people are either people who are in that house or people that have spoken to people in the house. But if they develop a perjury case against, and I'm making this up, I don't know, that against Higgins or Proctor or whatever, there is the risk at some point that those people will cooperate and roll up, as they say. And, what do I get if I tell you this? And if they believe that's credible, then those people turn from criminal defendants into witnesses who get 5K1 letters if they do a good job, and might substantially minimize their exposure. And that could lead to getting big people and potentially having them convicted. And by the way, you laugh at the jokes about, even today, there was this joke about like where the Albert's like a crime family. I mean, the way he asked the question, that's what they do in mafia cases. You know, the little guy to get the big guy. And that's probably how they would look at getting all the evidence they get from this case. Start
Roll
with
them
the
up.
small.
Roll, go up, move up
Yeah.
the chain.
You know, like, I mean, at some point, if the little fish think that the big fish in town is no longer going to be a big fish, well, you know what? Your options may change. And, you know, there's a lot of people, I don't want to mention names because it's not fair to them. I don't know what they did or didn't do, but there are some really small potatoes in this case who gave some, to be charitable to them, questionable testimony, given what they saw, what they said, and what they later claimed they saw and said. And those would be natural people to kind of try to develop it and just see what, if anything, they get. See that? What, if anything?
What if
That's what
anything,
you
Lally?
did there.
Yeah. We got a question from Luna's mom. She said, would Bev know all these texts prior to trial? I keep thinking about a question if Proctor would be called. Hint to Lally.
I think she would have been made aware, not necessarily of all the texts, but, you know, there are these things called motions in limine that lawyers file before trial about evidence that they want a pre-ruling to either keep the other side from offering or permission on your own side to offer. And one of the issues that would have come up would have been motions in limine about Proctor's problems. So in that regard, she would have known he was under internal affairs, perhaps what it was. I'm sure there was discussion of text messages. So I think in some capacity, she would know. Did she know it was going to devolve into the sad, pathetic Proctor of 8 months that you heard about? I don't know, but I don't think her saying, what if he doesn't testify? This is perhaps not what people want to hear or think. That doesn't strike me as, ooh, she's like, no, she's basically saying, how do you get this evidence in that Proctor's bad if he doesn't testify for them? That's not a dumb question.
Maybe Lally should have thought about that. Jeez, like I think he should have listened to Mark and not let him testify.
Was his lawyer even in court?
I know. It's just crazy. I think they were actually. I heard they were.
He has a real lawyer.
Union lawyers. He's got
no, but
union.
where I thought he had some former prosecutor type who's well regarded.
I don't know. I know the union reps I've heard were there today. That's all I know. I don't know.
They're just there because they're members in
Exactly.
trouble. But you know, the union's not saving him.
Exactly. People are still sending questions, but we're almost at the wrap up point. 8 o'clock is coming up. I'm sorry we can't get to every question. I mean, I'll throw this one up if you want to answer it quickly, because people are asking what could happen for John O'Keefe going forward. Here's another one related to it. Would the feds think of RICO for John O'Keefe's murder and linked to Sandra Birchmore? We haven't really talked about Sandra Birchmore with you. I don't know. Are you even aware of that one too?
Vaguely, but in all fairness, not nearly
like this. Yeah.
First to even pretend to have anything analytically intelligent to say, because I don't know anything about it. So I wouldn't know. I mean, I know it's a horrible story of a young girl who had problems with local cops and committed suicide, and there's scandal and all of that, and that's terrible, but I don't know the details.
Do you think there could be a RICO deal, or like, how likely do you think there will be some people with federal charges even? Well,
I mean, initially, I think they'd be looking at what you call process crimes, obstruction, perjury, those kinds of things. Does it devolve into more? I mean, look, the feds look at official corruption. They would, and this is something that people need to recognize. They wouldn't do an investigation only on like Brian Albert. I mean, they could get jurisdiction any number of ways, but they look at official corruption. That's the cops, that's the DA. And then of course there's all these tentacles with these other people who are involved, but would they make a RICO case out of it? I don't know. You'd have to establish that there is by definition a corrupt organization, and that's complicated.
It's harder to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, they go where the evidence takes them anyway. You know, it's not like they don't want to do what these people did, which is
Yeah.
square peg, round hole. I mean, you have to go where it goes, and maybe it
Go-
goes nowhere.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We go for the slam dunks first.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to thank you guys so much for being here. Mazza, what are your final thoughts tonight?
Well, defense is awesome. They needed to keep doing what they're doing. I thought, again, Alan Jackson, I just had a world-class Tom Brady, Paul Pierce, Jason Tatum, maybe not Jason Tatum in this finals, but just a world-class athlete level performance again today. Just brought it right to Michael Proctor. Like I said, my moment of the day for him was when he got that extra dig in. Shame on you, sir. I just thought he knew Auntie Bev was going to say something, but he knew he could just get it in and get away with it with a little bit of a squawk from Auntie Bev. But I liked it a lot. And one of the moments of the day that kind of went under the radar was Alan Jackson asked Michael Proctor, "You're the one responsible for gathering the evidence, right?" And Adam Lally goes, "Objection." It's a standard question. I mean, you're the one responsible for gathering the evidence. Can I not ask this question? I mean, come on. Yeah. Michael Proctor saying, "I stand by the integrity of this investigation." This investigation has no integrity at all. It's an absolute, like the Galera likes to say, it's an absolute sham without question. So that's all I got to say tonight. I just want to say to this whole movement, just keep doing what you're doing, guys. Keep supporting Karen Reed. Donate to her fund as well. If you can donate even just a little bit to help Karen out, a lot of the funds that you see are being used to cover these attorneys. There's some experts that are going to be coming out soon. We've heard rumors of that she'll probably have to cover for that too. So just please be sure if you can spare a little bit or make a generous donation to Karen, please do. Please just keep keep doing what we're doing as Nick Rocco and Jenna Rocco. Shout out to them. Just everything they've been doing for raising money for Karen, and just great work, everyone. And everyone that's new to this case, thank you so much. Thank you for reaching out to find information any way you can. If you're tuning into the Young Jerks, just recently, as of this week, even last week, on behalf of Mike, I'll just say it for you, Mike, if you don't mind. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for listening to Attorney Mark Bederow, who is providing us with exceptional legal expertise and reaction to all of this. It's a absolute pleasure to have Mark on this show, as Mike's had him on this show for weeks. So just wanted to get that out there. Sorry, Mike, for kind of getting a little
Oh, no, I love it.
toasty
And
there.
I'll jump in and say freekarenreed.net if you want to make donations. Freekarenreed.net will bring you right to that donation page. I love all the new donations. There's a lot of new people, so it's good to put that out there so people know they can donate to the Karen Reed Defense Fund if you want. There's a lot of costs to this. They're going to bring out these experts even before they get to testify. They have a hearing. And also, I think when you mentioned Alan Jackson, that moment, I think it was almost like, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. Like, he didn't say the not sorry part, but it felt like that. It was
I said what I said.
Yeah.
They're not sorry. He knew that was
knew.
not, technically speaking, proper, but he also knew that he was going to stand up for his client and let the jury know this man is disgusting and you should be as outraged as I am.
Yeah.
And that was the right thing to do. And
it was.
I mean, even the judge, I mean, look, she could have been if she wanted.
Even Bev was like,
she's like, "Mr. Jackson, you know better not to say those things."
Let's be honest, that was a half-hearted reprimand. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
For whatever reason. But look, we've been talking for weeks. This is over. It's over. And every day it gets worse and worse. And one of the funny comparisons that we used earlier was Monty Python, where, you've got no arms and no legs and keep fighting. And Lally's running out of limbs. I mean, there's going to be nothing left. I mean, he's going to battle with a well-oiled, experienced, and talented machine, and he's just getting trucked every day. I mean, they have nothing that would support a conviction here. And every piece of evidence or every witness that they try to bring out, it gets worse and worse. And they're finally running out of witnesses that actually matter. And the ones that they're left with are a medical examiner who's going to do nothing for them, a Celebrite person who maybe will do something for them, but probably not. And really nothing else, right? More troopers and more whatever kind of smaller witnesses. And this thing is so bad right now, and you have not yet gotten to accident reconstruction experts, Lucky, right? Driving Frankenstein or whatever it was called. It feels like you need someone to stop the fight. This is just,
You know, when you had a couple of references to what it's like. It reminds me of that old cartoon. Since we mentioned cartoons earlier, Wile E. Coyote and
the Roadrunner.
Roadrunner. You always knew how it was going to end up, but it's always different. But it's the same end result. You know, it's what it feels like every day. It's like the same, almost like Groundhog Day. It's just a little different, but it's the same every day.
I feel bad for there's got to be some decent people in the Norfolk DA's office and the Massachusetts State Police. I mean, I don't subscribe to the theory that everyone around there has to be bad, but I feel bad for the good ones because both of those offices are just credibility, just soiled. I mean, how are they going to recover from this unless they fumigate the place, both places? Otherwise, it's just going to be business as usual. And you have these communities around there that have no confidence in any of these people, and they need to go, all of them, and start over. Instead, they're just going to come back tomorrow. They're going to continue this. It's going to end the way it's going to end. There's going to be lawsuits. There's going to be further investigations, further litigation. It's going to cost the taxpayers a ton, whether for legal fees, civil payouts, all kinds of things. And then when this is over, you're going to say, like, for what? What was the purpose of it? And I can't help but feel that we're having this exercise because there were certain powerful people who are worried about what's going to happen to them. And we're having a show trial to kind of try to avoid that. And that's terrible.
That is terrible.
It's a show trial.
Yeah. A good last comment. We know who's going to direct Lucky, Mr. Yannetti. You think that it makes sense? You think that's probably how it's going to work out?
After watching that interview, that's pretty much it. Now, I wonder if, upon reflection, it makes a better idea to do Jackson just in case they need Yannetti to, for a narrow issue, testify, which of course he does not want to do. But, you may run the risk of, not finishing that discrediting of Proctor, depending on what Lucky says. Although from what you heard, it sounds pretty clear that they're very confident that Lucky is going to be a devastating witness for the DA, meaning against the DA, obviously.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you both for being here again. Go Celtics tonight. Let's make it 3-0, right?
Go Celtics. Congrats, Brady. Free Karen Reed.
And
2 games to
Mark,
nothing right now.
Yeah, we got to make Mark Cuban cry a little bit. He's got too much money.
Yeah, for sure.
They gotta wrap up Porzingis's leg for the next game. They got to win one of these on the road to make sure this thing is end this without any drama. So
right, exactly.
If it's tonight, it's over.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the famous quote? There's no series ever starts until somebody wins on the road, right?
That's right. That's a good point.
So, they're halfway.
You just need to take one or two of them, and you're good to go. Usually,
lock them up in Game 5. That's the plan. So they got to get one. This tonight or 2 nights from now?
I want to, but I'll take one.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Exactly. 100%, Mark. Well said.
I might even watch tonight. I thank you guys so much for being here tonight. Have a great night. Everyone. Enjoy your Celtics.
Free Karen Reed.
Thanks.
Free Karen Reed.
See you later.
And thank you. And I want to thank all the people who've been donating tonight too to the Karen Reed Defense Fund. Notice a lot of comments saying, I just donated. Thank you so much, everybody. It's amazing. I want to read off a couple of the Cash Apps, Venmos that came in. Cash App from Denise. She asked, what about the tainted gloves Tully pulled out? Good comment, Denise. I don't know. Diane sent $10. Actually, these are Venmos. I got the Venmo up. Denise sent $10 of Venmo. Diane sent $10. She says, great show. And earlier today, Leslie also sent $5, and she said if there was ever a face she wanted to punch, she's talking about Michael Proctor. Thank you, Leslie, for sending some money earlier today on the Cash App. Tara sent some money a couple days ago, too. I don't think we read it off. She said, I think Lally has Asperger's. No matter what the topic, he talks like he's talking about the weather. Rebecca also sent $5 the other night. Free Karen Reed, she said. Just know a couple Cash Apps came in. I want to just make sure. V, he said, thank you for your authenticity. I can't even say it. Say that again. Thank you for being authentic. There we go. I changed it, V, just so I could say the friggin' word. A little tied up today. I'm tired. I've had a long week already. I always have a long week. Paul also said $20. He said for the excellent reporting and for Mr. Bederow. Thank you so much, Paul. All right. That's awesome. I want to thank everybody. I think some more super chats came up. I want to make sure I put them up on the screen. I hope I got everyone's up tonight. Try to ask all the questions. Is brutally honest. He said, message from Karen Reed to Proctor. Still here, mofo. Yeah, I think Karen Reed definitely made some statements today. You can see it. Yesterday, too, with the arm crossed. Oh, man, that was great. Liked her and Yannetti, too. Pete says, to paraphrase, Oscar Wilde, to screw up once, Mr. DA, may be regarded as a misfortune. To screw up several times looks like carelessness. And how about just screwing up every single day over and over and over and over again? You look like a train wreck. Thank you, Pete. Thank you, everyone who donated tonight. Thank you for the folks who have been gifting memberships. We had a bunch of gifted memberships tonight. I love the community. Everyone's buying each other memberships. It's awesome. Thank you so much. We're almost at 25,000 subs on YouTube. We're at 24,000 right now. We're going to hit that this week. I want to thank our moderators. We got 3 great moderators, Jen, Stephanie, and MJ. Thank you so much for moderating. And we'll try to see you tomorrow morning. No, what am I saying? The Karen Reed trial tomorrow morning. I'm having some issues with the streaming. You might have noticed it's been freezing up. I don't know if it's my computer. I think it may be. I've deleted tons of files. It's a pretty new computer. It should be good. It's a made for streaming computer, but I think I am going to get a second one. But hey, deal with it. I deal with it. I try to get back in time to update, but I'm on the road, so unfortunately, we're not the most reliable court stream during the day. We still try to do it, but it's difficult. But I want to thank everyone who's been watching, commenting, and especially the folks that check out Bederow every night. It's great. Thank you so much. And I think I have something else I can't even remember. If you want to donate, please, freekarenreed.net. You can donate there to her defense fund. And there was a Canton police audit meeting tonight at 7:00. Unfortunately, we're missing it because we had the show with Bederow. I'm going to try to stream that maybe tomorrow night, maybe even late night if Canton Community Television uploads it. Usually it takes them a day to upload. So we'll get that out. Maybe even this weekend. We're definitely going to broadcast that. I want to thank everyone for supporting, checking us out. There were a couple people asking for my email. I did put out my email for a little bit, but the problem is I get so many emails when I do that, and I can't read them all, and it just gets lost, and the important emails that I do get lost in the shuffle when I do that. So maybe I'll end up setting up a second email, but even that, I just don't have the time to read them all. So it's very difficult. If you really have something important, a tip, you could always reach us on Twitter at The Young Jerks or on Facebook at The Young Jerks. Either one of those is the best way. You could also reach out to one of our moderators on YouTube, obviously, or if you know them. We may come up with another way, but I almost wish I could just, stipulate, please no theories. I don't want to know any theories. It's more about like real documented information that no one else has that would be best sent to us. All right, everyone, have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Karen Reed trial continues. We march on. Adam Lally going to walk into the wall like once more tomorrow morning. He just leads with his chin. I think he's leading with his whole face at this point. We'll see you tomorrow, everyone. Have a great night. Thank you so much.